Hello, and thank you for joining the session. Today we're going to continue working on our multi-platform chatbot. And right now, the place that we've gotten to is trying to get the live chat to show up on videos after the fact. So this actually is our current episode. Looks like there's somebody new in chat. Let's reload it. We can see them. The thing is here, that this live chat doesn't necessarily make sense just yet. If we look at here we go, let's go check out the live chat. This is actually a more active version of the site. We can actually see our more active version of the chat. This actually has all of the hooks for getting the live messages transferred via Pusher. We're using pusher.com to do the live notifications from the bot when the bot notices the chat. So that's all hooked up here, so we can see things pop up a little more quickly from here. But what we're actually working on now is trying to get previously testing live. All right, so sorry about that, Jose. It would have worked. If you want to say something else again, you can see, I think there's probably about maybe a 20-second delay. I did this exercise previously. Let me go to my Discord channel and say I'm are now live. I'm going to say hit enter now. So for me, it's almost instantaneous, but due to the lag between the time that it's actually recorded and to when somebody else actually sees it, there is some delay. Mostly because, again, I think there's at least anywhere between, I don't know, 15 to 30 seconds delay from when I actually say something and when you can see it. And then there's delay again before I will actually see that response. So sometimes it seems like it doubles the actual delay for people actually looking at it. So if it took you 10 to 15 seconds from the time you type something to the time you see it, it's actually, I guess that's not too bad. So I guess that's making a round trip because it has to get to me, and then it has to be recorded and broadcast back to you. So the general idea is that I want to be able to keep track of all of the chat that I'm doing. And I'm actually going to do a quick screenshot of my screen and share that just so people can kind of get an idea of what it is that why I'm trying to build this part of it. Oh, and you can see that this chat is slowly feeding its way in here. Again, this is this backend right now for the main site has, I think, like a 20-second delay before it will start pulling new information. But this is what I'm going to be looking at building. So I took a picture. Let me see if I can share it. There we go. Done. Photos app is acting a little weird, so let's see if I can share this. Awesome. So I'm going to try sending. Okay. We'll pull it up here just so you can see. My goal is to be able to have my iPad sitting below me so that I can see all of the people watching from the different services. I can see little things like the status indicator that, yes, I am indeed broadcasting. I can see the number of viewers from the different services. So that's the back end. The back end I'm pretty satisfied with. Clearly, this little bit here where I'm showing who's actually watching, that's still mocked up. That's not live data, but I'm not super worried about that just now. Getting the chat working is sort of the focus. What we can do, just where we can see the backend stuff a little better, let's go to designing an API continuation token. All right, so this is where things are a little more fun because this is actually code that are live recordings of chat that we took for this episode. So it doesn't look very good right now, but it is pulling in all of the information. What I'd like to do is duplicate Twitch's style of playback that if you were watching this episode that happened, a week or two ago, I want the chat to show up as it gets to the right time within the video itself. So that's kind of where we're going with this. and so far things are actually doing all right. We're getting the information, but we're not really displaying it based on any specific input. So I'm going to pull up the code. Let's see here. Let's get the right project open. All right, so we also ran into some fun things with style sheets. Originally, we were trying to do some things with the Shadow DOM with a custom web component called Astrocast Chat. The problem was that we weren't able to leverage any part of the CSS framework we're using, because the CSS framework that we were using sort of relied on um, the styles being available within the Shadow DOM. I guess that's actually a benefit of the Shadow DOM, that just doesn't happen. So the end result is that, at least right now, we're just appending the child directly to the messages container. So I don't actually want to be doing this. What we see here is we have a couple of classes. The chat interface itself, we have a store, and the store has the ability to add subscribers. We have the store connected to a specific session ID, and then the messages. Right now, we're looking to make sure that the message that we receive to the add function is actually for the correct session. So if it's not actually for the session we're looking at right now, we're just going to ignore it. And that's actually something that's going to happen, because if we are sitting here watching session 14, meanwhile, the live session 18, what we're currently watching, is happening, we'll see information coming in from, say, Joe or Supernova, who just joined chat. Thanks for joining. That shouldn't show up on session 14. So what we need to do is look to see that the message that we receive, the raw message, is actually for this session ID. For anybody else who's watching from the actual current live session page, they should see that message being the correct session ID, and then that should be added to chat real time. So that's one of the things that we're doing in our store. The subscribers, the way that these work is that we will call the subscribers and do something. Essentially, we'll give them the raw message anytime the store receives a new message. So the store's job is to receive new messages, record them, and then also send them to the subscribers. And then we have a polling class. The polling class is responsible for handling the pagination and consuming of the API with the chat messages. So let's see, I'm going to add this here. And this is where we have some of our logic for how long we should wait before we poll again. So if the API says, yes, we actually have another message available right now, then we'll have a very short polling time. We'll go again in 500 milliseconds. Otherwise, it's going to start slowing things down. So if the session is in progress, it's going to take every 20 seconds, every 20 seconds. Otherwise, it takes every 20 minutes. And then it does a first poll right away. So that's sort of the framework that we have set up so far. One of the goals that we wanted to do was make sure that the messages are stored in sequential order in JavaScript. That's something that I think we aren't, we are doing it here. And this is something that we might want to do somewhere else. Right now, we sort the messages right after we push them on, after we push on the raw message. This is probably a little too, it's going to be too heavy. If we push, say, 50 messages on, we shouldn't actually have to sort it every single time. So I'm not really sure where this is going to go, but this is where it is for now, and it's definitely something that I think we want to do somewhere else. One of the things we could do, potentially, is use something like throttle or debounce, which I'm using in one of the other places where we're doing this sort of polling thing, where we can set a timer, essentially, to say that only after we haven't added any new raw messages for at least 500 milliseconds, then we should sort, and then we should go ahead and tell the subscribers about all of the new messages. But that's something that I think we're probably going to have to deal with a little later. The other thing that we aren't doing at all right now is the author info. So here we can see that there is no information showing for the author. If we look at the live instance, we can see that it's actually showing the correct little avatar icons and names for the people who are chatting. We have that information if we look it up, but we actually have to do the lookup. The first implementation we did on the Go Live page was very simplistic. We tried to do some caching to make it a little more, well, a little less performance impacting. But we probably want to do something a little smarter here. So what I'm thinking about is potentially doing kind of what we had already talked about with the debounce idea, is that we won't actually tell the subscribers until we've actually added the author information to the raw message. So I think that's probably where we'll start, because this will sort of give us a way to sort of better understand how we want to deal with the things consuming this, and also trying to make sure that the way that we're getting the author information is a little more intelligent than the original implementation. So right now we're pushing raw messages. I don't think that's what we want to do. I think what we might want to do in this case is sort of sketch out what needs to happen. So ideally, if we have has author info already, then we can go ahead and immediately merge author info. Merge author info, raw message, and there we go. And we'll just do it like that and just assume that inside merge author info, everything will exist nicely. And we'll do raw message. So I'll change this a little better. All right, so this will give us the actual message. What are we going to do if that's not the case? So this is where things will potentially get a little more interesting. If we don't have that information already, then we need to request it. So we'll do get author info. And something that I haven't done a lot with, that I think would be super appropriate here, would be doing something with promises. So essentially, the promise that I have in mind here is merge the author info. If you already have it, then it can resolve right away. If you don't, then go get it, and once you get it, resolve. So let's see here. The structure I sort of had in mind was, well, let me see how I can create a JavaScript promise just to make sure. So JavaScript promise. Let's see what the best way to do this. All right, so new promise, resolve and reject. Stuff worked, otherwise reject, error broke. Okay, so I believe this would be considered, the way that the PHP stuff was written, I think this would be called the deferred. If you're a jQuery, similar to deferreds, which makes them subtly different and less useful. Promises are similar in APIs. Here's how you create. Okay, so let's try and create this and see if we can just get this to work. So add raw message. Let's do const promise, and we'll take resolve, reject, and All right. So based on this, what we can do is if this dot already, well, I'm going to copy it. All right. How do I uncomment? I think there's a way. There we go. All right, so these functions don't exist yet, but they will. Merge author info. All right. And we can, in this case, we're going to resolve this step, merge author info. All right. And then get author info. Think, assuming this is going to be a promise also, I think I can do this, but I'm not 100% sure. So what I'm going to do then is promise this dot then. Let's do message, and then we can actually push the actual message rather than the raw message, which will be useful. And then let's copy this in as well. I think let's just might as well copy it all in. And let's just see if this runs. It's not going to because of this, but I kind of want to see what the code is going to do at this point. So let's go ahead and open our console. All right, already has author info, doesn't work. So let's start implementing these. Already has author info, raw message. Oops. And the other function was get author info. And for these, let's return, resolve this merge author info. We'll do already has author info is true. We'll just hard code it for now. Get author info is going to return raw message. Actually, here, let's do this. Get author info dot then merge author info. There we go. This actually makes more sense. So yeah. So what this is doing now is, if I understand promises correctly, which I probably don't, FYI, this is going to allow us to have get author info to return a promise. When it's successful, we don't really care about anything at that point. We just want to know that it was successful. Essentially, this is saying when you have finished getting the author info, then do this. And then what we're going to do is do the same thing we did up here, merge author info. And then we pass in raw message, and because we're using the short function syntax, this function's return value is going to be passed back. So we're essentially resolving the output of merge author info. And this actually has me thinking that we can probably just do this, which will simplify things. Because we can just have this pass back immediately if we have author info. So this already has author info, might not actually be needed. So let's comment that out for now, because we can just take advantage of promises as they are and sort of get things going. So we need get author info, can be static, thanks. We need merge author info. And what we can assume, or what we are going to assume, is that merge author info is only ever going to be called if we know that the author information exists. It's probably not a 100% accurate assumption at this point, but that's what we're going to start with. So what we need to do is get author info to essentially do this sort of thing. So let's do get author info. So if, actually, we're going to do another promise because that's what we're going to do. So const promise, what we need to do is if this, let's create a structure, and we'll do Twitch, and let's do Discord, and let's do YouTube. So these are the keys that we need to create. And we're going to say if this dot authors, we'll do raw message dot, I think it's type. Let's double check what our structure looks like here. Source type. Dot source type. So if it's Twitch, and then we'll look for raw message, and I think it's author ID. So if it exists, then we are going to, we can just resolve immediately. Actually, hello Jackie, thanks for joining. I'm going to resolve this with the actual author information. We're not using it down here, but we could have. So I might actually do author. Let's just add that there, so that if it exists, great. So if we have the author information, then we can resolve with the information right away. Otherwise, we need to get that information. So I'm going to dive into our original code that did our author info. There we go. So I'm going to copy this code just because copying is fun. Okay, so I think we brought Axios in, so we don't need window in this case. The original implementation for the admin screen was just written inline in HTML. Oh, okay, Jackie, that's fine. You're not am I talking too fast? Is my accent weird? Hopefully at some point, maybe understanding is possible. Thanks for joining either way. All right, so originally this was being handled with just in raw HTML. So now we have a little more flexibility with what we're doing. So I'm going to say we're posting to a different URL because the URL is different. So let's look to see. Oh, we could actually pass this URL in. So we have polling URL. Let's do session URL as well. So we have Astrocast chat. We had session chat message template, session ID, polling URL. Let's do, and in progress, let's do author info URL. And we'll do URL session chats messages author info. So we can just have this URL passed in. So there's no need for us to hard code the URL. Now we need to make sure that it gets all the way to where it needs to be. So let's do polling URL, author info URL. So we're able to get this attribute information now for our custom web component here. So I'm going to change this a little bit so that we can see more things at the same time. In progress, and then it's just done. All right. Get attribute. It's the author info URL. And then we're going to pass that to the store because the store is the thing that's going to need that. So we'll do author info URL. And then the store constructor can record this for later. There we go. And now in the section where we were dealing with Axios before, we can just do this.author info URL. The other thing we need to change is we're using raw message at this point. So we're getting the source type and the author ID from the raw message. Is it a website? Jackie Shows is asking. So what we've done is built a bot. The bot's actually running in the background here. We have one for my local development and then also running on Heroku for the live site. And what it does is it connects to Twitch, it connects to YouTube, and it connects to Discord. So I'm going to say something here in Discord, from Discord, and when I hit enter, it actually shows up. So this is great for live purposes. I actually shared a screenshot earlier. Let's see if it's still open. It's not. There we go. I think I can open this up. Is it this one? Yeah. So I have this interface running on my iPad. So this is for the live session. But after the fact, I want people to be able to go look at a specific episode, like this specific episode, and then see the chat messages that happened while I did this across all of the services. So I'm recording the chat messages so that I can show them later. And the trick is going to be making sure that, say we're now 4 hours and 28 minutes in, when people say something now, when you get 4 hour, sorry, no, it's 4:28 p.m. So we're about 28 minutes in. So when someone watches this after the fact and they get to 28 minutes, if they look right now, any messages that happen around 28 minutes into the episode should start showing up on the chat. So that's kind of our goal, and that's sort of what we're building. So it is a website, but there's a lot of weird moving pieces. Okay, so catch, resolve. So we do have a user map already. This user map is actually more or less what we've already called this.authors. So rather than user map, we'll call this this.authors. We don't need that extra dot. And then this.authors. I'm not exactly sure why it's saying this is invalid usage. Okay, so I sometimes lose the context for when I can use this and when I can't. So apparently this is fine. This is fine, but this is not. So I'm gonna do what I usually do. This, and then I can use that. I think there's probably more appropriate ways to do this, but yeah, it is what it is. All right, so let's see here. Here I was actually adding stuff directly to containers, and I don't want to do that. What I want to do is probably just this bit. So I don't want to set the avatar URL. Let's do display name, and let's do avatar URL. I don't need to do any logic there. All right. So this will essentially give me the information that we need. And what we need to be passing back at this point is resolving this value. So let's go ahead and do that. Resolve. So if we need that information, we get it. If we don't need it, then we don't get it. Or if we don't need it, then we get it and we can just ignore it. We're going to do the same thing in both of the cases here. So one of the things that I wanted to be able to account for here was the fact that sometimes, actually I need to get rid of this. Sometimes, or the problem that we had before was that if we had a bunch of messages coming in, we would end up with several of these requests coming in before we would actually get the responses. So we weren't really doing a good job of caching the requests on the front end. So we need to do something a little different here. But first I need to make sure get author info, I need to return the promise so that the consumer can actually get that information. Merge author info. All right. So once we've started this post, we don't want to start another one if something's already in flight for this specific source type and author ID. So I think what we need to do is create that instance. So here we are setting a value to this structure. I think I feel like we need to have a separate queue of things that are being looked up. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. It might be possible that we'll just wait on that for now, actually. Let's see if we can get it working as is first. All right, so merge author info. You know, I might actually change my mind on this as well. So originally we weren't doing anything with author. I think that it might be better to do this and just pass the author information into the merge author command. So let's do that. Author. Okay, and then we can return how do I do the object deconstruction thing? There we go. Spread syntax. Some ... numbers. I want to append apply for new. Here we go. I think it's the copying bits. I do this. Yeah. ... raw message ... author. I think what that will do will give us the ability to find a full message that has both the original raw message along with the bits that were specific for the author. And I think just for the sake of consistency, it does make sense to keep this underscored because that's how they're going to be coming in. So let's go ahead and see what happens here if we run the code now. if it's anything at all. Ooh. All right, so let's see. Return. Okay, it doesn't like that, so apparently that's not right. It's possible the project isn't set up to handle that. Spread syntax. Okay. See what happens if we do this. It's possible I couldn't chain them. Does that work? No. It's possible I don't have these. Configure Babel, additional presets. I don't want to go through all that nonsense right now, so I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way. Message. Which I sort of feel bad about this, but so be it. Let's see if we can get to the next level. Awesome. Reload. Reference message is not defined. All right, that makes sense. Where am I using? Here. I'm using message all over the place. There's a bunch of repeated code in here that I would love to clean up at some point, but not right now. Okay, so now it's pulling stuff in, which is good. Let's see, so you can see it's paginating. We're getting 5 messages at a time. Author ID message. All right, so we're not getting those. Okay, so let's see. Subscribers push. All right, so it is pushing message. It's also console logging this.messages, which is cool. So it is getting the information correctly. It just wasn't showing up at this level. So it is actually adding the information, which is good. So that means that the way that this was happening actually makes sense. However, I'm not sure that things are actually going to be displayed in the correct order. But I will tackle that problem maybe a little bit later. So it's actually showing up. Let's see if we can do something about the styling a little bit. Let's see, we have message container class list. So I'm not sure why these things aren't looking right. Leading normal. Oh, here. This is probably overflow hidden. Trying to figure out why they are only that high. It's weird. Let's see if we can figure out. So we have height 0. Flex 1. Overflow hidden. I don't know why they're overflow hidden. Let's see if we can turn that off. didn't seem to make a difference. PT0. For, let's see, so that actually has a margin of 16. This has a height of 44. Let's take flex 1 off. That didn't matter. Oh, I think it's at H64. There we go. So H64, I think that's caused, by setting the height here, I think it's intentionally trying to compress everything else. But I don't think that's, let's do flex no shrink. That doesn't matter. So I think that's probably part of the problem, is that it's squishing them all together because it's forcing the height for some reason. Flex height container shrink. Flex 1, flex initial. I don't remember what flex. So item to grow and shrink as needing, ignoring its initial size. Let's see if we can turn that off, maybe. Let's go look at the template. So this was one of the other things I wanted to switch, was make sure this template wasn't necessarily here. Because I would love that to just be a part of the component itself instead of having to also have the template here. Let's turn this off. Let's turn this off and try loading again. All right, so that did a little bit of something. No, it's still kind of weird. So let's keep this flex 1, allow flex item to grow and shrink as needed. Let's do flex initial. Looks like it shouldn't have needed to be there at all. Yeah, see, it looks great up until it starts adding additional content. Then it gets all squishy. Let's do flex no shrink. Maybe that needs to be, maybe that needs to be here. Yes, there we go. All right, so this works a little better. Awesome. All right, so that also means then that we should have the ability to show those bits of information. So we had message author and source type. So let's see if we can get those showing as well. Then where do we have that actually happening? Connected callback. Here we go. So we're just doing it here. So let's do query selector, source type we're not going to do anything with, display name container, message author, and avatar container. Okay. And then we can do, how are we doing that? There we go. Actually, I'm going to copy. There we go. Let's add that. So we're going to use message here because we have a raw, or we have an actual message. Display name. We're going to do message here as well. There we go. So the only thing that we're missing then, if this worked correctly, okay, cool. So we've got the names. So the piece that we're still missing is the type. So let's go find out where we were doing that. I think we had a bunch of templates for those. Templates, there we go. So this was for Twitch, Discord, and YouTube. Let's copy those into session. And again, this is the part that I don't necessarily like. I wish I could have these templates elsewhere. I'm sure there's probably a way to do it. I just haven't figured that out yet. And then let's use that here. Type. All right, and we'll add that to our main class here. So the connected callback. We're going to get our icons, and then we should be able to use our icons in here. Pin child. All right, switch some of these. So icons, message source type, content, clone node. All right. Cool. So now we see Discord. Looks like we got some Twitch users. If we ever see the Astrocasts logo, we'll probably see YouTube. So we have YouTube. So we have all of them showing up here, which is pretty awesome. So that's more or less what I was hoping that we'd be able to do. Now, it took a little longer than I had hoped, because really what I would like to do is have this show up a little... I'd like to have this tied to the actual video stream that's coming in. So I don't know if we're going to get that far today, unfortunately. I think I will try to tweak this a little bit. Let's do margin 4. Let's do margin 2. So I kind of want this to be a little more tight. The version that we had here, everything is like broken out, which is fine. But what I'd really like to see is things not quite so broken out. It should be able to be a little tighter for what's shown on the site. So margin 2, let's do margin right equals 2, width, height. Let's see what else we can do here. Leading normal. So it's padding. Let's do P0. See what happens there. Okay, we could probably drop the icon size as well. Let's do 5 and see what that looks like. I don't think that's actually 5 pixels. It's not too bad, actually. Yeah, it's just a little more compact. I think this is probably a little better. It's enough that I think I'm happy with it like it is. So this is, so far this is making me pretty happy. Um, so the next bit that we need to do that we can probably start looking at least for say 5 minutes or so before we have to go is looking at how this subscriber is handled or is handling these changes. Right now, we're doing it all inline here, and it's responsible for essentially taking a message that it receives and then just displaying it. What I think we need to have is another abstraction that is maybe like a video timeline. So what we have here within our store, we have raw messages. So these are the raw messages that have the author information as it comes in. What we end up getting in our store, or in our subscriber to our store, is each message as it actually comes in. So what I think we need to add is a new class to manage the syncing of the time to the playback. So let's do time, let's call it timeline. And what we're going to need to have, let's see here, the timeline is going to be responsible for creating a message. So let's do create message, message, we'll do create message DOM. All right, and this logic is all going to go in there, except for the container appending. That's not going to happen. So let's do this. So this message, so we need to be able to get the chat message template. So we'll need to pass that into it. So let's start getting the things that we need. So we'll get the constructor. We need session chat message template. And let's just name it now, message template. Stop message template. There we go. And we can do there. And then we aren't doing anything here, so let's do return this message. So now we can do const timeline, new timeline. We'll pass in the session chat message template. Where do we get that? There we go. It's this dot. Okay. That's actually, I wonder. We could almost do that later, but I'm not going to change that just now. But I don't know if we need to do it quite like this. So we're going to first pass in the chat message template. And then we can, this message equals timeline dot create message DOM message. And then append that. So let's see if this still works, if this sort of passes through. Because this then starts to give our timeline more reasoning to do this. Do this meaning have a purpose. Create message DOM. This might actually be renamed something else because I think we want to cache these. So let's leave it like this for now. Let's reload, see if it loads the information, and something's broken. Let's see. Icons is not defined. Okay, so let's pass icons So that'll be something else that needs to be passed to our timeline. Icons. Oop. Let's see here. There we go. So I think the end goal that we're ending up with is the web component itself. Hopefully it's not doing a lot. We're kind of using it as a container for all the bits of things that are going on. We're using it to get access to external data, things like URLs and state and session ID. We're using it to get information from the document, and then we're using the rest of the classes to do stuff with that information. I don't know if that's the correct way to use web components, but that's the way that I'm using them. All right, so we've got all of the information here showing up, which is good. So this works now, the create DOM message. The thing that we can do now is make this a little smarter. And we'll say dot message DOMs. And let's say if this dot message DOMs message.id return this dot message DOMs. So this will allow us to essentially have caching in place, so that if you try to create the message DOM for a message that already exists, we'll just return the existing one. We also need to then store this, because otherwise that will never be true. So we'll do this message. Let's see if this works. Looks like it did. So this actually is showing one of the potential race condition issues. Here we can see I'm asking Supernova about DB issues, and Supernova is saying not today, above me. So I don't think that, I think this is potentially going to have things sorted in a weird order. So let's go ahead and look at where we're doing the sorting. Sort function. So this is actually really awesome. It does not matter. We're doing a lot of work. We're sorting these messages quite frequently. But it does not matter, because we are sending the messages to our subscribers in a specific order, regardless. So I need to remove this because this is pointless. So if we get to this point with a later message before previous messages, that's the order it's going on the DOM. So where we really need to do this is probably on the timeline. Let's see here. So we have create DOM message in this part here. This is actually where we should probably be doing things. So let's try something really heavy, just to sort of play this out though. So let's do create DOM message. Let's do dot message container dot replace children. Can we do replace child now? Append move all. DOM move all children. Append all. Replace child. Oh, this is probably going to be way too heavy now that I think about it. So I guess what we should do is maybe wait until the next session to do this more. So right now everything works. Right now everything is groovy. So I think, yeah, I think that's probably the best path because I don't want to mess this up. Yeah, here we see, I don't think you can, I don't even see, yeah, supernova here is now showing up after the fact. Mostly, I'm almost positive that has to do with the fact that the promises are coming back in a different order. So I guess we're going to work on that again tomorrow. Thank you for joining today. If you have any questions, ping me on Twitter. Otherwise, thank you for joining and looking forward to seeing you later this week. Bye.